this episode we're going to be installing a Torrington bearing, an Andrews 27 camshaft, Andrews chrome moly push rods, and some chrome tappet blocks. And see if we can get this bad boy putting out some horsepower. As you can see, I've cleaned the case and nose cone cover. I've put back in the old breather valve, the plastic breather valve, and I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to use the camshaft, the old end grind camshaft without a spacer on it, to line it up and start the bearing installation. And here we go. I've put the bearing on the end of the cam. I have an installation tool, but if you put this in there like that, it sets the bearing in there nice and square. And then I get my BFH. I bottomed that out, but that's not in fire enough. So this little tool that I've got has a ridge on it to set the bearing height. And there we go. There's the bearing, flat, installed. I'm going to put a little bit of synthetic oil in there before I get going. Then I'm going to take this junk out, and I'll tell you, I'm pretty disappointed that Harley would put something like this in a bike. I mean, I just happen to be changing the cam, but I wouldn't have touched this. So I said I was putting a Jims in, but at GarageCycles.com I found a Midwest breather. It hasn't come in yet, and it's machined for $34, which is a little less than half the price of the Jims. Alrighty, I got the gaskets and we're almost ready to roll. Welcome back. Well, your crankcase should look something like this now. In the last segment we replaced the Torrington bearing using the old camshaft to line up the 3 gears and push it in. However, I didn't remember to tell you that it doesn't push the bearing all the way in. You're going to have to get a socket and tap it in till it stops. There's a stop in the back, or a cam installation tool has a little ridge on it. I still use the camshaft because it lines the bearing up nice between the 2 gears. The other thing I did was the old Harley, and I'm really disappointed in Harley Davidson, I love them, but I bought a steel machined gear. I was going to get a Jims, but it was a little too expensive, so I got a Midwest, and it seems to be machined really nicely. I'm going to install the cam now. Just check that out. Everything's been cleaned. The tappet screen's been removed and cleaned. All the surfaces have been cleaned. There was some paint that had gotten in here. I got that off. And anywho, we're going to put in the camshaft right now. And here we have the EV27 camshaft with a thrust washer and a shim. I believe it was the 55,000th shim. I'm going to try that and check the end play after it's installed. And I have the mark on the breather gear aligned on the camshaft and also the pinion gear, and I won't be able to tell if there's any backlash till I get it put back together. Now I'm setting the front tappet block. The tappets have been all cleaned, and setting that down on top of here. Looks pretty good. Get the gasket up there a little bit. Alright. Now, I'm going to use, I have a couple of magnets holding the tappets up till I get a little tool in here. Go in this one. This little tool came in a kit, and what it does, it aligns the tappet blocks because they're not counterbored. So there isn't a way to actually center them. So I'm just bringing this one down kind of finger tight. Coming back in here. And screwing these in. These are, they have a countersunk shape on them. They came in that little kit I mentioned on the last segment from eBay. And I'm just going to give them an ever so small twist just to make sure they're seated and the block isn't going to wiggle around. No gasket material, and make sure you put the gasket, that oil, it's a little oil hole in the back there. Okay, I've installed the front tappet block, and as you can see, I have left the tool in the front. I've taken the rear one out. Of course, I tightened 2 bolts just a little bit before I did that. Pull this tool out of here now. I haven't let the tappet slide down. I still have the magnets in there, but now I have a nice chrome tappet block in there, aligned perfectly. And this job's a lot easier if you're not changing the tappet blocks. But if you want to take them off and paint them or something, they're pretty ratty inside. They really should be cleaned out with a Dremel tool. Anywho, the reason I haven't put the black back one on yet is I want to check the camshaft end play, and I'm going to do that by putting the cover back on, putting a screw, the timing screw in here, and then a feeler gauge in the back. You can also mount a dial indicator and go off of that screw too if you want to get that technical. But until then, I've left the tappets up. I'm going to put the case back together and lubricate these a little bit, put the case back on and see what happens. That actually worked pretty good. Keep the cam perfectly level while I'm pulling it back. I just had it up too far. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and put the bolts back in and just torque them a little bit. Yeah, when you're putting these in, there's a few different sizes, so make sure you get the right size and the right hole. And we'll have this back together in a moment. Alrighty. Now I'm going to pull out the cam cover puller. That came in the kit too. I'm just using the little posts from the ignition. It's a nice little tool. I hope I'm in frame here somehow. It's real easy to use. And everything looks real nice in there. I'm going to check this for end play. And now I've got my feeler gauge, and I have 5/10,000ths of an inch of space between the edge of the cam and the spacer. And I can see the oil on it, so I know it's going in there. And now we can get ready to put the back block on and the push rods. Well, before I do the push rods, I'm going to take the magnets out and let the tappets slide down onto the camshaft. And they look like they're lined up pretty nice.